symbology is something that is universal. It ties us into the consciousness field, the ancestral collective consciousness. Okay, it ties us into the collective consciousness. So that's like the place where we all share ancestral memory, and we can plug into longitudinal memory. It's like these nodes, these things that we all share, or these similar things that we share that can synchronize certain aspects of being alive, of our consciousness. Consciousness is part of being alive, and there is an aspect of us that lives on, that's connected, an essence and energy that we can plug into through symbology as a collective. And this place is like two sides of a coin. You can get with this or you can get with that. And depending on how you aligned with it, you can plug into joy and all types of information. But you can also plug into what some would assume are astral parasites, meaning things that are not differentiated by you as counterproductive. So like if we accept certain thoughts, feelings, and concepts because we're aligned with them, they're much easier to attach to us, right? And we're not sorting them out. We're not differentiating between these different consciousness frequencies, okay? And through not being able to acknowledge them, they can gain access through the alignment of synchronicity, like frequency. Just because you want some stuff can kind of stick to you because you didn't choose to sort the stuff out, okay? And in the same way, you can plug into, you can access bliss, and which is a joy, which is the happiness that we can plug into. Like, we all have things that we find joyful about being alive, you know, like the essence or the frequency of love and comfort, safety, acceptance, and there's lots of other good stuff in there too. And that's also reached through intention and how you aligned your symbology internally in order to magnetize things externally. So there is a inertia going on here too, and there's a paradox, whereas we can utilize the symbology, which is outside of us, right, to change things that are conditions that are inside of us, emotionally, physically, right? However, in the same aspect, the things that we use that are outside of us, there's nothing new under the sun, right? So these are also similar things that are a part of who we are and inside of us. Like the as above, so below, as within, so without concept is very apparent when it comes to symbology. And that's part of the reason why when you line them up, you can get the inertia from snapping them together, like when you snap a Lego together and it can become something else. The creative energy and force from making something else, from acknowledging other things, creates an energy, right? And through that energy is what you're actually working with using the symbology, okay? So I've got some clips of examples of that, like the Star of David is also the Shield of Solomon, which is also, depending on the way you look at it, the amino acid, okay? So depending on the way you look at symbology and the way that you're plugging into it affects what you get out of it, right? And what aspect you plugged into of it. So anyway, I've got some examples of flocking and swarming, you know, as far as the exterior, showing us how the spatial thing works, right? And also keep in mind that in the Kabbalah, 10 is Lord. 10 is like when one has the power of 10, it's multiplied. And here we're talking about the inertia. Okay? That one has the power of 10. So it's not just one alone. It's showing that it's within that space. There's other things going on there, like the whole, the parts, the singular parts of the whole, right? The sum of its parts kind of thing is what we're looking at when it comes to energy and symbolism and space and just and movement.
Remember, our plant genetics book is also called Source Material on the Kemetic Wave Function, right? So in this book is for the future. This book is for the future. So when they begin to understand that electrons form standing waves around atoms, and so when we're looking at the chemistry of a molecule, what we're actually looking at is the chemistry. We're actually looking at the makeup of standing waves and how standing waves behave in the body. And right? This is for the future. We're in the future. We're going back to the future. Maybe that's what I need. Maybe that's what I need. A back to the future joint. That's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna make a back to the future joint. I gotta remind myself of that. That's what I need for the plant genetics. I need a back to the future joint. Right? But so we need to get it, right? Phenolics are defined by aromatic rings with hydroxyl substitution. Aromatic rings are circular standing wave cavities where delocalized electrons form rotational resonance. Okay. Right. Now that's my favorite part of the discussion. Right? That's my favorite part of the discussion. Because that's what got me into a lot of this. That's why I have like weird entry points into some of these discussions, right? Because my entry point into this discussion comes from the Bible, right? My entry point into this discussion of aromatic rings comes from the Bible, right? Because in the Bible, you got King Solomon. King Solomon, he asked God for wisdom, right? And King Solomon got a symbol. That symbol somehow translates to wisdom of everything, right? So for me, I was very curious about that symbol. Very curious. Then I find out that this is a hexagram. Right? I'm like, a hexagram? Oh, wait a minute, because it's the 6 lines. And then I'm like, wait a minute. I know about another system of hexagrams. This is crazy, right? Where you get like something like this. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, something like that. Boom. Right? Hexagram. Right? Then I keep looking, right? Because now with this, I find out that this whole thing here is about 64 versions of a binary code. Right? 64 versions of a binary code. So I'm already deep. I'm hooked. But I'm not hooked from the standpoint of like how normal people looking at it. I'm into this binary code and the fact that 64 also happens to be the codons of DNA. Right? So, so I'm deep into this now, right? So then I look at this, right? And if we remove these edges, right? If we remove these edges, right? In the center of this star is a hexagram. A hexagon, rather, right? And this hexagon is basically the geometry of life, right? Why is the hexagon the geometry of life? Because water molecules use this shape, right? You have something called sphere packing. Sphere packing is the science of basically putting spheres together. And in order to make a complex organism, the first thing you have to be efficient on is space. right? So as much as people talk about frequency, which is a discussion of time, they forget about space. And in order to be efficient, you know, you want to get into frequencies and have high frequencies of good habits. Well, you also have to have a high efficiency in terms of spacing, right? So life forms use hexagonal shapes because it is the maximum or most efficient thing that you can use in terms of most efficient shape you could use in terms of space, right? So when you talk about structured water, pigments, and a whole other bunch of biological, you know, molecules, cells, etc., they use this shape, right? So even when you look outside of the human body, you got honeycombs and all kinds of stuff, flowers and all kinds of stuff use this, right? For spacing purposes, right? Because space has an intricate relationship with time, right? Space and time determine energy movement. And space and time, in terms of their relationship to energy movement, is how your ancestors a long time ago came up with sacred geometry, right? Because understanding geometry is how you understand energy, right? But now we have terms like mass. Mass is the same thing. Mass is the same thing, right? It's about the energy inside of a thing, right? That's what sacred geometry is about, right? So anyway, I goes down this long rabbit hole, right? Of for most people considered to be craziness, right? But for me, the way my mind is hardwired, right? It leads me to light, right? It leads me to the understanding of light, right? Like masonry, like Kemet, it all comes down to light. And so this right here, is that right? Yep. This right here is the shape of an aromatic ring, right? And this aromatic ring is super important. Aromatic ring. Aromatic rings are super important. This is why we have aromatic amino acids, right? Because they have this, right? So that is our tryptophan and tyrosine, right? You got phenylalanine too, but don't worry about phenylalanine, right? These are the stars of the show, right? And then we could probably do this, add these lines in here, right? So when you see this like this, what's really happening is you got electron movement inside this confined, right? So this is a very unique shape. So this would be likened, right, to the right, the resonant wave cavity, right? That's what this becomes, a resonant electron cavity, right? So this shape, this aromatic ring gives amino acids or aromatic amino acids and anything made out of them the ability to interface with light in a way that you can't without this shape and this structure, right? This is how you get to interface with light. So all of your amazing pigments are made out of these two guys, one or the other or both, right? And where particular pesticides become dangerous is because certain pesticides, they mess with this. It's called the Shikimate or Shikimate pathway. And I might be misspelling this and probably mispronouncing it, but we'll look it up in a second, right? But this is the pathway in plants, right? Where the plants produce these, right? So plants have this, they have a Shikimate pathway and they produce this. Humans don't produce these. Most animals don't produce these. So we have to eat the plants to get these, to build the pigments that goes into your neurons, your skin, your fur, your what else? Your coat, the feathers, whatever the case may be. Wherever you have pigment, you're going to need these. It comes from the plants, right? Pesticides and certain things target this area. So this is what the people that understand the science knew immediately, maybe 20 years ago, when watermelons with white seeds first start popping up like everywhere, right? Because when I was a kid, I'm not even 50 yet, right? 50 is right around the corner, but I'm not 50 yet, right? And when I was a kid, white seeds in the watermelon was crazy. We probably wouldn't even eat it. If we opened a watermelon and saw white seeds, we'd think it was bad. We wouldn't even eat it. That's how rare it was. We just never saw that before. It was always black seeds and watermelons. Like, we just took that for granted. You know what I'm saying? Somewhere along the lines of my late teenage years, we started to seeing a lot of watermelons that was small and round and white seeds and all that, right? Because the chemicals was messing with this. And if it messes with this, it messes with a organism's ability to formulate pigment. If it messes with your ability to formulate pigment, it messes with your ability to reproduce, you know, interface with light, electricity, energy, blah, 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 blah. There's a whole host of things that this is responsible for, right? So it's not just light, right? So for instance, give you an example, tyrosine, right? You know, you need tyrosine for neuromelanin, melanin, you know, cardiac melanocytes, all that. But tryptophan, you got to have tryptophan for serotonin, melatonin, what else? Vitamin B3, I believe. A couple different things. Yeah. So your neurochemistry and your metabolism run on this. Yeah, your neurochemistry and your metabolism run on this, right? So you can't have healthy babies if you're deficient in this. Because how is a mom going to get this to her baby? She don't got none, right? Hypothetically, right? So anyway, but that's how I got all the way, you know, that's how my interest from way somewhere in left field wind up walking me all the way down into this. You know what I'm saying? Shout out to Mona Harrison, because Mona Harrison was the first person that I saw like exclusively talking about water and some of those things, way before like Masaru Emoto and Gerald Pollack and all of these later people that would come along, right?